Welcome to Roots and Branches of Lehi, the podcast where we get to know the faces, stories, and lives that make up our community. I'm Ryan Harding, and I started this podcast as a way for us all to connect with the people we live alongside. Growing up in a small town, I learned that connections go beyond blood. They're built through shared experiences, friendships, and the moments we celebrate together. Each week, we'll sit down with someone new from Lehi to share their unique story, their passions, and what they love most about living here. So whether you've been here for years or just arrived, join us as we deepen our roots and reach out to our branches one story at a time. Welcome, John Wallwork, to the Roots and Branches of Lehi podcast. Happy to have you here and get to know you a little bit better, get to know Skyridge and get to know all these things about you. So
happy to be here, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So tell me where you're from. Are you originally from Lehi? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I was born in Auckland, New Zealand, if you could tell from my accent.
Yeah.
But lived there a short time, and then I went to Samoa, lived with my grandparents for a year or two while my parents got a divorce and kind of got established. Lived in Hawaii for a couple of years, and then most of my life I was raised in Washington State.
Okay.
And then we just moved here to Lehi 4 years ago. This is my fourth year.
Okay, so
at Skyridge, yeah.
Rather recent then.
Yeah.
So is that what got you? So you said 4 years ago and Skyridge. So is that what got you here then? Was that job?
Well, the job made it possible for us to move here. So we've got 6 kids. My wife and I have been married for almost 30 years. Our 2 oldest live here in Utah, and it just got to that time where they were getting married and starting to have kids, and we just wanted to be closer to them. So
sure.
So the job certainly made it possible to move here, yeah.
Okay. And have you always been in education?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, always. I graduated from BYU Hawaii.
Okay.
The beaches at BYU Hawaii are a little bit more than Provo.
Yeah, a little better.
Could offer.
Yeah.
Anyway, I started out as a teacher. I taught Spanish and social studies.
Okay.
My first year in Vegas. Taught a little bit in Washington State. Taught a little bit in Wyoming. Mm-hmm. But yeah, all of it's been in education as a teacher or administrator.
Yeah. And so how long have you been a principal then? 4 years? Or?
Yeah, so this is my 4th year as a principal here. Before I moved here, I was a principal of a high school, the largest high school in the state of Washington, for about 8 years.
Okay.
And then I was a principal of a middle school before that for 2 years, assistant principal at a high school for 3 years, and then everything before that was in the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now tell me then, since you've had experience both, in and outside of Utah, tell me how it was to do a high school 8 years in Washington and stuff like that. Any differences, similarity? I mean, kids are kids, but I'm assuming culturally there's different things.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably the biggest difference, Ryan, is so this is the first place where really poverty is not a real issue.
Okay.
Here's the first place where there's also not a lot of diversity. So I've come from places where usually it's a high poverty, high diverse, but here in Lehi, there's not a lot of that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but there's just not a lot of that here in Lehi, which is good too, right?
Sure.
But like you said, kids are kids.
Yeah.
Just different challenges, different problems, but yeah.
Okay. Any other differences or any other things, from that time?
Probably the other big difference I always tell people is, Washington was the union, the teacher union was pretty strong. So as an administrator, you kind of had to navigate that. You always had to take that in consideration. You always it seemed like it was hard to make decisions. You really had to have the union backing on hirings and initiatives.
Okay.
And just here in Utah, you don't have that challenge.
Okay.
We've got a great relationship with our union, but it's just not that intense. I think 2 years before I moved here, our school district went on a strike.
Okay.
And so, anyway, that's probably another difference. Just the kind of the watchful eye of the union and kind of their hands in kind of all the decisions that schools make.
I'm assuming that makes it harder to fire people, I guess, and stuff like that, or I mean, maybe there's not a lot of firing going on, I guess.
Yeah, no, certainly the union does certainly add an aspect when it comes to hiring and firing and pushing through maybe initiatives that you want your school to adopt or change.
Okay.
So there is that aspect there. So yeah, it makes it a little tougher.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so going back to you and kind of your beginnings here, Why education? Why'd you choose education? You're a smart guy. I'm guessing you could have gone a lot of different directions. What?
Yeah, I'm not as smart as you might think I am, Ryan, but thank you. I think for me, just initially to go in education, to be a teacher and a coach, because that's kind of what motivated me, just the impact that teachers and coaches can have on kids. Mm-hmm. I think that was really the kind of initiated this whole career.
Sure.
Just wanted to make a difference in kids' lives, and
yeah.
I noticed as administration goes, you still have an impact, but as an administrator, it's not necessarily like maybe that direct impact that a classroom teacher can have, but it's more an impact that you have on systems,
yeah,
and processes and practices and policies, and so, which you hope would impact kids as well. But yeah, so that was the original, to make a difference in kids' lives. And
yeah, which obviously I'm sure. Well, so speak to that then for a minute.
Yeah.
Any memorable, so now 4 years here at Skyridge.
Yeah.
Any memorable moments where you're, hey, I'm really glad we started that program or did this or anything like that.
Yeah. I think if I look back on my career, I think the times that are really, really rewarding, and this, I'm not bragging or anything, I'm not saying this happens like every single day of my life, but it's those times where you see a kid or a family in a grocery store, at Walmart, or at a restaurant, mm-hmm. out in the community. Because I've always lived in the community where I worked. Like, I really believe in that. People say, like, I want to live outside of the community. I like
Sure.
to drive, and listen, I'd rather relax on my couch 2 minutes later than in a car
Sure.
30 minutes. So I've always lived in the community where I worked. And when you do that, there's just been so many experiences where you run into people mm-hmm. that you've had an impact on, and they come up and thank you or apologize and say, sorry, man, you were such a good dude, I didn't agree with it.
Sure.
Those experiences there that I've had numerous times because I've always lived in the community, those have been the rewarding opportunities and experiences that I've had.
Yeah.
Just to see people go to their weddings, see them grow, having their kids come to the school where you're at. Just all of those experiences have been really, really impactful. So I don't know if anyone's ever come up to me and said, hey, that rule that you made in high school really changed my life. I don't know about that, but just I think kids recognize when they're treated nice and fair and given opportunities when maybe don't think they deserve it, but they get them. So anyway.
So tell me about your leadership style, I guess, with, because obviously as a principal, you're both in charge of the kids and really the teachers too then, right? Yeah. So tell me how would you define your leadership style, and how has that changed or evolved over time?
Yeah. No, it's good. I think one of the things because I was a principal before COVID and now after COVID, I think one of the areas where I've grown as a principal, as an administrator, is I think COVID, one thing that it really taught me is we really just need to be more empathetic and more flexible and mm-hmm. understanding, and give more grace to kids and families. Than I think sometimes as a principal, our offices are no factories, like no liability, you can't do this, I don't want to do that, my unintended consequences, all of that.
Sure.
I think it becomes a no factory, and it's a lot easier sometimes to just say no.
Of course.
But I think what COVID did for me, at least personally, is, we've got kids, even whether you're in high poverty areas or not, you've got kids and families having some rough times and hard times with things. And so just giving kids more grace and more empathy and being more flexible,
sure,
I think is one thing that my leadership style has grown and progressed. So.
Good. So talk to me about Skyridge. So Skyridge is a fast-growing high school.
Yeah.
Speak to that for a second. How have you dealt with all the growth? I mean, are you adding a lot of classes and teachers and stuff like that, or?
You bet. Yeah, no, that's a good question. So Skyridge, this is going to be, next year is going to be our 10th year that we've been open
as a school.
And as you may know, the first 4 years we had ninth graders in the building. And so the school was up above 335, mid 3,000. After Viewpoint was built, that took the ninth graders out of our building. So now we're just sophomores through juniors, 10 through 12th grade. And we've been fluctuating in the years I've been here. So right now we're a little above 2,500.
Okay.
And that number seemed to be about 2,400 when I got here. So I think one of the things that this district, former district, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
One of the things that this district does well is just it really builds buildings. It kind of watches that, because I don't think they want their schools too big. And so by building viewpoint, by adjusting boundaries, by building new schools, it kind of relieves the pressure of the growth. So we've kind of been around that mid-2000s for the past few years.
Okay.
And that's huge. Sure. But it's manageable. I mean, the high school I came from was a 9 through 12, and we were about 3,300. And that just becomes a city, right? It's hard to manage. It's hard to be everywhere. You got to delegate a lot, and you don't quite get down. But anyway, this Skyridge's size right now, obviously we're one of the larger 6A schools, but I feel like it's pretty manageable. I've got 5 assistants. They're really good. We get out and we see kids. We're in the hallways and classrooms. So I think it's manageable. Anything larger than that, it might get a little tougher. Sure. Yeah.
And so how does it compare to, so you mentioned, larger among the 6A. How many 6A schools are in the state? Do you know that answer?
Yeah. I believe there's 18 6A schools in the state of Utah.
Okay.
And we're on the higher end, right? I think it goes from like 1,900 and above, and there's about 18 of those schools. So.
Okay. And now Lehi High School is a 5A then?
No, Lehi just became 6A last year.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. And so how many students do they have? Do you know?
I think they're about 100, 200 behind us.
Okay, so very similar.
They're a little over 2,000, I think.
Okay. So how do you think, so then how does it compare, I guess, to those other schools, the other 6A schools, Skyridge?
Yeah.
And
I haven't been. This is the only school I've been to in Utah, so I don't know all the other schools. I mean, I think the big challenge that schools have. There's a lot of challenges that come with poverty. So there's a lot of big schools in the Salt Lake, Granite districts that are experiencing high poverty, and with poverty come a lot of different challenges. So in that regard, we're pretty well off. I mean, we've got a great supportive community here. I mean, a lot of my kids come from 2-parent homes and have high expectations, and so I don't necessarily have to battle too much with these kids want to graduate and go to college. Yeah. You don't have to convince them of that. Yeah. So when there's poverty, there's a lot of challenges. I mean, that's still your job, but it becomes a challenge when they're battling those obstacles and barriers in their world. So
because I'm guessing you're saying, college is not really something they're thinking about, I guess. They're just trying to graduate, I guess,
just having worked in high poverty areas, I think they're battling a couple things. One, they don't have a history of college in their family, right? A lot of first-time college goers, attenders, in a lot of these first-time high school graduates, right? And so you're kind of trying to break this cycle, and you're trying to instill new goals and high achievement in these kids, and so that certainly comes with a lot of challenges. Here in Lehi and at Skyridge especially, I mean, I haven't had so many conferences with moms and dads. Usually where I come from, they're with grandma or aunt or, and so that right there it changes the game for a kid. If a kid comes from a really supportive home that has a lot of resources and has some high expectations, because we've gone to college, you're going to go to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that probably is a huge difference for Skyridge. We're really blessed in that way.
Sure. Well, I guess, it shows the importance of a family.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, so then my guess is you don't have some of those big problems like you're saying.
Yeah.
But my guess is you're not problem free.
No, definitely not.
So then tell me, what are some of the problems that a school like Skyridge deals with?
Yeah, that's good question. So I following with that same theme, I think and you've probably seen this in this community, where now you do have a lot of challenges when it comes to maybe the expectations are too high, right?
Okay, sure.
Maybe there's too much pressure in succeeding and getting straight A's and a 4.0 and going to the college, so sometimes those pressures and expectations can cause some anxiety and some mental health and some depression when maybe you don't reach.
Sure.
When you get your first C and you've always got A's, and so that certainly adds. It's a different problem, but it certainly is a challenge that you're gonna have to confront and deal with, and be really supportive with those kids, and those families. And so, yeah, that's probably the other end of
Sure. Do you have much problems with discipline or with, I guess that kind of part of? Do you deal with that much?
Not a terrible amount of discipline at Skyridge. I mean, I've been there for 4 years. I think maybe we've had 2 fights. Vaping is kind of a growing trend that kids are dabbling with. But other than that, Ryan, when it comes to kids misbehaving, disrupting the classroom and having to be removed and given school consequence, there's not a lot of that at Skyridge.
Okay, that's awesome. Good.
Yeah, no, it is. It's great. It lets us as administrators kind of focus on learning, and so that certainly is a benefit. Yeah.
Well, yes, exactly. I mean, if you don't have the problems, then you can focus on, hey, how do we make life better, right? Yeah. And so I guess speak to that as far as any kind of traditions. The school is still relatively new, I guess, right? You said 10 years. Yeah. You've been there for. Any traditions or things that you guys are kind of focused on, because you don't have to worry about the discipline part?
Yeah. It's funny when you ask that, Ryan. Sometimes, like I said, I've been at schools where there's real high poverty, and with that comes a lot of challenges. And I just remember, one fight could take your whole day. Like, you gotta cancel your classroom observation. You gotta cancel that meeting that you're gonna go to.
Yeah.
So it seems like, when you have less discipline, it's really an administrator's dream.
Sure.
Because then you're focusing on all the things. But then I always tell people too, though, part of the challenge for me, and I don't know how this is going to come out. I share this with a lot of people, but sometimes in those high poverty areas when you're dealing with a lot of serious behavior things, and sometimes you feel needed, right?
Sure.
Like if I don't change certain practices and policies that might be unfair for kids, like, they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Like if I don't reach out to an immigration lawyer in town that I know to help this family, they're done.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so sometimes an administrator in those schools, you really feel like, man, I am really needed. I'm making a difference.
Yeah.
And not that I don't experience that here, because there are opportunities. There's just different ones. But sometimes whatever Mr. Wallwork does or doesn't do, that kid's going to be successful because they come from a great home and supportive parents, and they have resources, right?
Sure.
In education, sometimes we call those third base kids, right? Like, they're not trying to just get on base. They're already at third base, and they're ready to come home because of all the stuff that they have. And so sometimes that is a challenge, at least for me, in transitioning here to Lehi and to Skyridge, is trying to make myself feel like, okay, I really need to do some things to make an impact on kids. And so it's a little harder, but still there's opportunities for that. So, but it does allow you to focus. So one of the things at Skyridge we're focusing on is collaboration.
Okay.
Like, really taking advantage of a team of teachers having an impact on the school, as opposed to, I'm a traditional teacher who I'm going to just do it the way I always done it, and I'm going to go in my classroom and teach, shut the door, and I'm going to do. So we're really focused on people collaborating, creating a true professional learning community. So if we're English teachers, then we're going to be dependent on each other, because we're going to teach the same things, the same standards, because kids deserve the same experience. Like, it shouldn't be a lottery, right? Like, if I take Mr. Ryan, man, it's going to be awesome, but hey, nobody wants to take Wallwork. So we're going to really collaborate to provide a great experience for all kids, no matter what. But then we're also going to teach things the same way, not the same way necessarily, but we're going to teach the same standards. We're going to assess the same, because we're going to share data on that. And I'm going to say, Ryan, your kids knocked out of the park on standard 1.2. My kids didn't do well. How did you teach that? And you're going to tell me how to teach that?
Sure.
And I'm going to say, gosh, I need to try that. Because if I don't try that, that's malpractice on my part, right? If I'm not practicing those strategies that yield the best results, then I'm committing malpractice to my students, right? So we're really focused at Skyridge on that, just collaborating like that, as opposed to, everybody you're independent, just teach what you want, and do what you do in your classroom and shut the door. And we're trying to get away from that. So.
Which I love that you're doing that. I mean, that's any business, any organization knows that councils and working together is always going to be better, right? I mean, because none of us, as smart as some of us are, we're smarter together, right? And so that makes a lot of sense. That's good that you're doing that. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So good.
We feel it's the best thing for kids. I mean, not only does it help us as teachers, but we just feel like it's the best for kids. Like, why would you not do that? Like, I don't have all the tools and resources, but I'm going to lean on people when I have weaknesses or shortcomings. I'm going to lean on others that do know a lot more than me and have better. And we've noticed when we hire new teachers, it really helps them. As opposed to, hey, good luck. Here's the book.
Sure, good luck.
But no, it's like, here's our script.
Here's what we're doing.
Here's what we do. And we're all going to do it. And we're all going to see the results. And we're going to be trusting each other to say, like, hey, I lacked on this area. How did you teach that? Because your kids knocked that out of the park. So anyway, we feel like it's, and that's what research shows. That's what the data shows. If you kids get more gain when they have a group of teachers that believe that they can learn and they share best practices and strategies. So anyway, it's nothing John Wallwork created. This is all
But see, I guess you're living what you're teaching, though, because you're saying, "Hey, I didn't come up with this, but I'm humble enough to recognize that other people have some knowledge, and I want to use that." Right? I mean, so you're actually practicing exactly what you're preaching in that regard. I mean, because again, if you're like me, I don't have many original ideas ever, so I just copy it. I like that. I'm going to do that.
Educators are the best thieves.
Yes,
they take and steal the best practices, and that's what you should do.
I think so. That's what
stealing's not bad in that essence.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. That's right. Plagiarism in that regard. We're good. We're good with that. So with kids graduating high school and stuff like that, obviously, like you said, the third base kids, I like that. What skills or what important skills do you think those high schoolers need to have to go on to that next phase, whether that's immediately into the workforce, trade school, college? What skills do you think?
When it comes to Skyridge, our graduation rate has been fluctuating between the low 90s and the mid 90%. So we graduate a lot of kids. That's above the national average. It's above the state average. It's kind of the norm for the Alpine School District, because in this Utah County there's a lot of great high schools. But we're graduating. Getting kids to graduation really isn't our challenge, although it could be challenging for some kids, because some kids' school doesn't come real easy.
Sure.
But getting them to graduate is probably not our main. Our kind of the focus is we're trying to prepare kids for post-secondary life. So when it comes to college or careers or internships or what have you, that's kind of what we're trying to prepare kids for, because nowadays there's just so many options. Like, the world needs plumbers and electricians. Like, right, not everybody has to attend a 4-year university. So I think that's been a little shift. It used to be like, you got to go to college or you're not going to do it. Well, we've learned that there's a lot of different options when it comes to earning a living and making a career. And so that's what we're trying to instill in kids, is just being excellent and having integrity and just working hard. And those are some of our values, and part of our mission statement at Skyridge is to kind of instill in those things, because those things will carry you through no matter where your route is. So
which makes a lot of sense. I think we are starting to realize, hey, college isn't the only answer, right? I mean, I do loans for a lot of people in the trades that make a lot of money. They're doing really well. And I think what I tell my kids is, just get good at something. Like, it doesn't, you need to get expert in something, because the world will pay you if you're good at that. And whether that's a college skill or a trade school or whatever, you need to get good at something. If you float around, then you're never good at anything, right?
No, that's great advice, and I love it. And that's probably why we have such high achievers as kids. It's just because I think a lot of our kids get that message.
Sure.
And it's always been, I always say, like, when you backwards design your life, if you know what you want to do in the end and then have a path to get there, that's always the best.
Sure.
Some kids, though, they don't, and not that you have to, they don't, by the time they graduate, they still don't know what they want to do. And so that's the other piece, is trying to get them kick-started with concurrent enrollment classes and AP courses and college courses, just to kind of open them up to that world. I think is helpful. That's the other thing. We've got probably one of the highest enrollments when it comes to concurrent enrollment in college level classes and AP courses, just to give those kids experiences to maybe where they could maybe find, okay, I don't like this, but I like that. And so, so anyway, that's a challenge.
Which, this is just me asking, because when I was a kid, I would have loved concurrent enrollment and different things that. And I don't know if it was around back then or if I was just naive to it, but that didn't really exist. AP classes existed, but you had to do really well, and otherwise you didn't get credit, right? So I love concurrent enrollment. I think that's really helped my two daughters go to college with credits and stuff like that. Is that like nationally are we doing that? Is that locally we're doing, like, where did that, because I love that system. I think that's a great system.
No, I think nationally, and I don't want to, I'm not a pessimist, I'm an optimistic. People do things for the right reasons. But no, it didn't exist when we were going to college, because those partnerships I don't believe existed with colleges and high schools. And now colleges, it's a huge thing for them to have these kids, especially, not only are they saving money, right? Because the states, the college is still getting the money from the state. So they're making money, and that's profitable for them, and that's good for them. But it also, like, I don't know how a lot of our kids, we have a partnership with UVU and concurrent enrollment, like most schools. And I don't know how many of those kids continue on to UVU, right? And so I think the colleges have kind of opened their minds. I think before, when we were young, colleges maybe had that attitude of, well, we're the college,
kind
we're
of
much smarter.
Elitism a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But now I think they've realized, well, gosh, a fourth of our student population could be high school kids in high school, and we're still getting state money because they're students of ours, although the students are saving on tuition and credits, but we're still getting that money. And not only that, there's a higher propensity for them to continue on in our school when they finish high school.
They already have some.
So it's huge, and I think it's good for our kids too to experience college level work, that they can do it, right? That it's not this out of reach elite thing. But I've been doing it in high school, and so anyway, it's been really good. Well,
I do love that. It's a good program. So. You already spoke to this a little bit, so, if you're like, hey, I'm good, but tell me, as far as, you mentioned COVID and stuff like that, that was a big change for schools, right, as far as being in person and not. Any other things you learned from that time, things that changed, adapted, that, like, where you adapted, but now you found, hey, that's a permanent thing we're doing now?
You bet, I think a couple things, and I think just the internal lessons. Sometimes we think COVID's over, but we've got to remember, like, sometimes I have to remind myself of this, is, our graduates in the class of 25, like, they were maybe 8th grade, 7th grade, like, anyway, what I'm trying to say is, although we're kind of coming out of the educational impacts of COVID, for a lot of our kids and families, they're still in it, because COVID was really, really hard educationally for a lot of kids, and when you go without for that year and a half, it can really impact you. I've had kids. I've got a 12-year-old. I've got a 7th grader. I've got a to-be 10th grader. And elementary was tough for those kids as well. Maybe even harder, because parents they're not wired to be elementary teachers, right? Like, they don't have the patience and the know-how. I mean, they do. You can do simple math, but there's just so much that schools. I think we realized the need for schools and for teachers and for educators that really do a good job. And so that's one of the things. I think technology is certainly, during COVID, all the online, all the Canvas, all the things that teachers provide outside of the classroom, all the opportunities to download assignments and turn assignments in digitally. And anyway, a lot of that has really changed, and I think has made us better teachers.
Good.
So anyway, those are a couple of the impacts.
Oh, good. Talk to me. So high school can sometimes be an awkward time of life, people trying to fit in and different things like that. Just from a student's perspective, who am I, so how do you help those students? How do you help students in general, I guess, find themselves, or, figure out, what things do you do to kind of help those students?
No, that's good. The first thing that comes to my mind, Ryan, we've just got, our schools have so many resources. We've got 7 counselors. We've got a social worker. We just created 2 years ago a wellness room with kind of a person in there when kids just having a rough time, need a break. we've just got a lot of resources. We got people to help kids along this path that maybe you and I didn't have. We have a person specifically designated to help kids with scholarships and college applications and the FAFSA and all the financial. I mean, we've got so many people, really good people who care about kids that can provide a lot of resources where me and you didn't have them, right? So that's one thing. I think the other thing that's been really supportive and good for us is we really try. I mean, we've got a lot of kids. There's so many opportunities. I mean, we've got, if you think about it, there's 26 different sports that are available. We've got 60 different clubs that are available. That doesn't even count all of our music programs and drama programs, and just, so one of the things we try to just preach is just get involved. Like do something from 3 to 5. Don't just go home.
Sure.
Do something. I get it. Like a lot of kids have jobs, and it makes it tough, which is awesome. Yeah. But we really try to advertise and promote all of the different programs that kids can get involved with, and we just feel like when you do that, data shows, statistics show, when you're involved in your school outside of the 7:30 to 2:30, when you're involved, you're just a lot more connected to school. Sure. You're a lot more connected to others. Your social network expands because you've got teammates and club members and you're doing things that are just really healthy. And so, anyway, that's a huge part of a high school experience, is just all of the extracurricular, all of the things that are offered outside of the school day. Yeah. Really important for kids.
Which I like that you have so many, because oftentimes, unless you're really good at, football, basketball, or soccer, like some of those main ones, baseball, right? Then it's like, okay, now I don't get to play a sport, or now I don't get to do, this. So I like that you have lots of variety there, I guess, too, to try to give people, because I agree that there's a huge benefit to, those things, right? I mean, there's a huge benefit to being able to participate in the sport, but unless you're the exceptional player, probably not playing in high school, right? And so that's kind of hard sometimes, because normal good kids miss out on some of those opportunities, I guess, right? So.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, we have a fishing club. We've got, anybody can go fish, but just having I think it's 20, 25 kids strong in our fishing club.
Nice.
We've got all these different clubs. We've got a bonsai club. We've got esports is coming up with all the tech guys and all the video gaming. Yeah. Esports is something that the state association is kind of are getting involved in. So there's state championships for esports. Nice. Anyway, there's just so many different options, all the traditional ones, all the language clubs, but we started our Polynesian pop club. It's become pretty popular, and they're involved with some cultural things. Anyway, you don't have to be great at sports to be involved. There's a lot of different opportunities.
Well, and I'm glad you're helping the students more with, that is something that's changed, to your point, from when we were kids, because I would have loved to have somebody hold my hand to, register for the different classes or note, because, it's more just, this looks good, but I didn't really have a roadmap. The kids now, there's a lot more help, and I love that. I think that's a great thing. I think, it was more, hey, good luck,
Huge,
and nowadays it's like, well, let's help them. They don't know.
You bet.
And so I love that we're doing that more.
And the thing is, Ryan, I went to 4 years of college. Yeah. I got a master's degree, and I feel like I'm educated, but it changes so much. There's so many different rules, and I can't keep up with it. I'm a terrible advisor for my own kids. Sure. And so it's nice to have resources at school that know that world and are updated on all of the different rules and anyway. So it's really
well. I think that speaks to why we need experts in different things, because the world is changing so much that if you're not keeping up, you are falling behind, right? And so I think that's a plug, I guess, for public schools in general, is just, hey, these guys are dedicated, people to this, trying to make your life better. I don't know. So that's, so, as far as teachers and staff, you have good teachers there at Skyridge, obviously. Anything you would say, that they're doing well, or I guess speak to your teachers for a minute, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah. So, Ryan, just a anecdotal story. So, I live in this community, and as you can tell, I eat out a lot.
Sure.
And I go to the grocery store. My wife tries not to go to Walmart with me or Smith's because she knows I'll be stopped by
get flagged down.
Family.
Sure.
But here's the thing: when I run into kids I'll always ask them a couple things. I'll ask them, hey, who's your favorite teacher? And they'll rattle off names. And then I'll ask them, hey, between you and I, give me a teacher that was maybe not so pleasant to go to.
Sure.
And Ryan, I'm telling you, I'm not making this up, but I'd say probably 90% of the time I ask that question to kids, they can't think of one.
Oh, good.
They're always like, oh gosh, I don't know. I kind of liked all my teachers. Anyway, I get that answer so many times, and I've lived in communities where I haven't gotten that answer. They'll spend a lot of time on the
negative ones. Sure.
And so it tells me that, listen, we've got teachers. Obviously, we've got evaluations and growth, and we don't have. It's not perfection there, but the thing that impresses me most is these teachers care about kids. The content, that's another thing.
Sure.
And some teachers are better than other teachers at that. But boy, if you don't have a basic love for kids and want to do right by kids and be a positive influence, you're really in the wrong business. And I feel like at Skyridge, we just have a lot of great teachers that really care about the important things when it comes to kids. And so anyway, that's what impresses me most. Teachers, coaches. Yeah, they're in it for the right reasons, and so anyway, that's one of the awesome things about.
I love that. I love that. That's a great example, and just a real life. And I guess another benefit to your point of living in the community is you get to have those conversations. Yeah. Whereas if you lived, up in Salt Lake and you commute down, you wouldn't have those because they wouldn't know you up there, right? Yeah. So no, I love that.
Yeah, certainly a benefit. Yeah.
Well, so. I don't know your plans long term and stuff like that, but speak to Skyridge for a minute. Yeah. What are your hopes and goals over the next 5 years, 5-10 years for Skyridge? And what things do you see, happening in those next 5-10 years?
So one of the things that we're really happy with, it's our 10-year anniversary. So we plan to do some celebrating this next year and celebrate that 10 years. We got to a point where we're kind of revamping our mission statement, our vision, our commitment, our beliefs. So we're really excited about that. I think it's something that we kind of involved all of our stakeholders, not only staff, but community and kids in creating that mission. And so we're really big, and we've kind of landed on a couple things. We want everybody to feel like they belong, and we want learning to be kind of the focus, like learning and growth. And so anyway, we've kind of created this, with the help of all these stakeholders, we've kind of created this new mission and vision statement where it kind of just hones in on having all of our kids, all of our community members feel like they belong at Skyridge High School, and that learning is really, really important. So that's the one thing I'm excited. 5 or 10 years, I don't know. I mean, Ryan, they always say there's two kinds of principals that have been fired and principals that are going to be fired.
Sure.
And so usually a principal in a building 4 to 6 years is kind of what it is. After that, but I live in the area. I live in the Skyridge boundary. My kids, like I said, I have a 7th grader and a 10th grader. So I've told my boss that I want to hand them their diplomas just like I did my other 4 kids. And so I hope to be around for the next 4 or 5 years. But certainly if my boss came to me and said, hey, you know what? We're going to go a different direction. I certainly understand that too.
Sure.
I get it. There's a lot of good administrators out there, a lot of good assistant principals that are ready to get a principal job. But for the meantime, we're just going to focus on collaborating well and learning and having kids belong. And we'll see where that takes us.
Well, then here's another question for you. If resources were unlimited, what things, like so you have unlimited resources and stuff, anything you would like to see happen with either students or teachers? If you had unlimited resources.
Man, unlimited resources. One of the things, not that this is the most important, but I don't know if you've probably learned, Ryan, in this community, athletics is a very important thing. Yeah. It seems like 75% of my meetings as a principal deal with athletics. Okay. And so I know we've been talking about just improving our facilities. We have great facilities, but we've been talking about like an indoor facility. Just because the winter's so long and it doesn't help your baseball team when they're practicing in the gym or so anyway, it'd be great to have indoor facilities. A couple other neighboring districts that have one of those, and with the weather here, it really helps. So anyway, if I had unlimited funds, probably
Some more indoor facilities.
Giving a boost to our athletic facilities might be an area. I think the other thing I'd probably have is I wish I just had this fund, because as I've talked about, we've got a lot of, we don't have a lot of poverty here, but we do have families that kind of go through emergency, like temporary crisis.
Sure.
I wish I had this unlimited fund where I could just go, and when a kid can't pay the $500, $800 sports fee or band fee, like I wish I could just go and here you go. But that's tough. There's no fun like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that I'd probably, if I had unlimited resources, be able to help a lot of the kids that maybe temporarily are struggling that can't.
Sure.
Because it does cause. I mean, where I came from, we didn't have any fee. You had a $25 ASB fee. But here, I mean, if you want to be on the dance team, it's going to cost you $1,500, and that's hard for some families to do. And so, when I moved here, I brought a senior with me, my senior daughter, and she didn't do any sports. And at the end of the year, there was like an $800 bill because of all the fees for classes, science class, da-da-da.
Yep.
Anyway, and that was just, she wasn't in any, so unlimited resources would probably give me some funds to help families with temporary needs.
Okay. I like that. And you mentioned athletics and stuff. Are you a coach then too at the high school? You had mentioned coaching and stuff like that.
No, there's not enough hours in the day for a principal.
I was thinking that, but I wasn't sure. But you'd mentioned coaching.
But I've coached, before I got in administration, I coached everything with a ball and a paycheck.
Okay.
So I was a head basketball coach in high school, and then I coached just everything that, because it's for a lot of teachers, it's supplemental income. You need. So.
Well, and you probably enjoyed it too.
Yeah, I did. So, it was fun.
Yeah. Good.
But no, I do have an athletic kind of background where those things are important to me, and they're fun to watch.
Good. Okay.
And this is a great area. There's a lot of good schools here that are winning a lot.
Yeah.
It's pretty competitive.
Yeah. Which obviously raises the bar for everybody. Makes it better. So I appreciate you coming in and talking about Skyridge. Any last things that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about, I guess, as we talk about Lehi and the community itself and different things like that?
Yeah. Gosh, nothing I can think of, Ryan. You covered it pretty well, but
good.
No, this is a great place to be. I feel really blessed. I got a great school and great families and a great community. They're very supportive. So no, I feel like I'm a lucky guy to have a job in this kind of a place. We never thought we'd move to Utah. I think we'd come here in the summers and be like, man, I could never live there. But
sure.
Kids kind of change that. But no, it's been a great transition. I love it here.
Good.
It's been a really good place to work and live. So
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, my wife and I, we went to BYU and met there, and we didn't think we'd stay in Utah either. But we're now 25 years later, we're still here. Yeah. So it is what it is. Yeah. So, but no, thank you for coming on. Thank you for all you're doing with the kids and with teachers, and it's good to get a pulse on the community high school here. Yeah. So anyhow,
thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you for joining us on Roots and Branches of Lehi. I hope today's story helped you feel a little more connected to the people who make up our community. Remember, every person here has a unique story, and together, we're what makes Lehi feel like home. If you know someone who would be a great fit for this podcast, please fill out the form in the show notes so we can reach out and schedule an interview. We'd love to hear from you. A big thank you to our sponsors, the Work Harding Home Mortgage Team and Play Harding Nightly Vacation Rentals, for supporting this show and helping us bring our community closer together. Until next time, keep growing those roots and reaching out to your branches. Take care.